Hola guys and welcome to Capture Caprot, when polygons meet desire. My name's Lian and today I'm gonna show my crazy experiment with recreating characters Alan Wake and Mr. Scratch from Alan Wake American Nightmare from zero using Character Creator 5 and new Headshot 3 tool, which came out very recently. I'll tell you why I decided to do this, share my pipeline and show you the result with some test renders. So grab some coffee, whiskey or both, and let's go! The idea of recreating the characters from Alan Wake American Nightmare has been on my mind for a long time. Let's be honest, the game has great live action scenes, but the character models are absolutely terrible in quality. Of course, I know there was a ton of limitation for the Xbox Live Arcade release, but what's the point of discussing that almost 15 years later? Especially after the sequel came out, it's time to take matters into our own hands and fix it. For those who don't know me, I'll remind you that I'm not a professional 3D artist and I can't work with organic modeling, so the only solution in this situation is tools like Headshot from Character Creator. Just for reference, Headshot is a built-in tool inside the Character Creator ecosystem from Reallusion that lets you generate a character from a real front-facing photo or from ready-made mesh. Thanks for the second method that I reconstructed the faces of characters from the original Death Stranding, Tomb Raider and Alan Wake 2 with a perfect rigging system without the brain-melting hassle of tweaking and southern bones in XPS. I had already worked with the second version of Headshot, but to be fair, when working from photos, especially ones taken casually from the internet, it often produced total cringe result which needed many edits. The new system makes the process much easier thanks to its AI features. And here I need to drop a whole sheet of disclaimers about generative AI. I'm myself against it in 2D work, but in 3D there are exceptions. I want to close this topic right away. I already commented on this in one Discord community a long time ago, but I'll repeat it here because not all artists understand how 3D technology works. The thing is, most modern tools in 3D graphics and even in many years ago are based on machine learning. If developers use it, you wouldn't call their work AIslop, right? It's the same situation with Headshot. This is a tool that generates a copy of the mesh and correctly transfers the texture onto it. This mechanics is very similar to metahuman technology. When you scan your face with an iPhone, Headshot creates a base that you still have to refine anyway. If it's a mesh, even though it's generated, you still need to correct the transferred textures and manually edit normals, which is absolute hell. When working from photos, the generation can't capture all the subtle details of the face, so we have to refine them manually, taking into account the anatomical features of the person we're transferring into 3D. This process can take several days, and don't forget we might have a day job too. So to those who think this approach is mindless AIslop just because the add-on description has the letters AI, you have no idea how much effort goes into this kind of work. So let's back to our reconstruction. Obviously, we can't use the mesh of Alan from the sequel as a base because he already looks, well, say, not so freshy. That's why I choose to generate the character from a photo. I took a photo of Ilkka impromptu. I assume it was shot approximately at that epoch. I'll say right away that this wasn't the best example for generation because the face isn't properly lit, and even though the expression isn't somewhat neutral, it still carries emotion. But anyway, as I said, we have no choice and possibility to make a proper one. The new generation tools in Headshot lets you create a suitable base from the original photo. It removes shadows, fixes the perspective, and if you want can remove the hair. The last part is highly recommended because the hair in the image only gets in the way. Yeah, it's very funny and weird, but I assure you the result is worth it. You can generate a similar photo in profile as well. Headshot 3 has a function to adjust the generated mesh to match it, but in my case it didn't work perfectly because the ears were at a slightly different distance. And if you think you can just upload the photo and get a finished result with one click, you are seriously mistaken. Anyway, I generated the base mesh and started manually adjusting the morphs. What's great about Headshot compared to the second version is that there are a ton of morphs here and you can work both with the visual tweak system and point by point. I used a combined method. Also, there is a nice mask tool which can allow you to edit scan texture and delete the issues which is caused by photo reprojection. It's very useful for the eye zone, especially for normals. The logic is simple, we just clean problem places and reveal the standard CC5 default skin. I have to say that my usual pipeline didn't work this time. Normally I create the character shape, then replace the eyes and teeth according to Reallusion guide in Blender and re-import it. But that approach doesn't work with the new version of the add-on. Version 2.0.4 throws errors. What saved me was that I still had the original Alan assets from Alan Wake 2 that I made in CC4. I simply loaded them into CC5, saved the eyes and teeth as separate assets, and then transferred them onto my new mesh. Actually, CC5 version has the rich teeth customization, but I don't see the point when I already have a ready-made 3D cast from the real actor. As for the eyes, they don't transfer to the new mesh perfectly. You need to adjust the size of the eyeball and possibly the pupil. Same thing with the teeth, and be ready for the fact that during these processes the model's height parameters will keep resetting, which you fix the character height morph. The funniest part is that I set Ilkka real height in CC5, but when I imported him into Blender, he turned out shorter than the original Alan Wake 2 asset. I don't know why it's happened, but correction is still needed. For the face texture, I mixed two textures in Photoshop. I used the generated texture from the photo as the base and then overlaid details from the previously generated Alan textures for Alan Wake 2, mainly for the hair base, stubble and some moles. I didn't use the normal map from Alan from the sequel because some details there are too sharp for Wake in American Nightmare. But even so, I think the result is quite decent. As for modifications, for Alan I used clothing from Alan Wake 2, the flannel shirt with a t-shirt underneath and jeans. Yeah, I know that the original, the sleeves were rolled up and he had cargo pants with the pockets, but sorry, I don't have the ability to buy Marvelous Designer to create those things. However, I did manage to outfit Scratch a bit more properly. I'll talk about that a bit later. A few words about the hairstyle. I referenced the low poly version from the game, but recreating it 100% accurately is a bit questionable, so I made my own author's version that I like and that doesn't break the canon. From a base hairstyle in CC5, I built a completely new structure. At the back, it's slightly overgrown, but it keeps his natural side part that appears in both American Nightmare and Alan Wake 2. I left few sticking out strands in the front according to canon and kept some chaotic mess on the crown which is fully matches his image. Well, let's talk about Scratch. Scratch is a more delicate story. Even though he's the evil twin, I had to adjust some morphs. In particular, I lifted the corners of his mouth a bit, made his face slightly more jolly. Ilkka already has a quite pronounced lower face, but for Scratch I emphasized it just a little bit. I also slightly narrowed his gaze overall. I added a bit nasolabial folds simply because they appear in the live action action scenes when he makes his faces, so by default he looks more detached. But in any case, all expressions are created using blend shapes. I made him several looks. The first one, where he's in a suit jacket, I took Casey's assets without the tie, which is very symbolic. I also made a couple more looks when he's wearing a vest coat and a shirt with a roll-up sleeves. I bought the vest and shirt separately on CG Trader. I wanted to add something like American Psycho vibe, but not too close. I modified the asset by adding blood splatter on the shirt, neck and face using alpha textures from Alan Wake 2 assets that I extracted with RMD doc tools, and considering that Hika built me a knife that appeared in one of the live action scenes, I think this look fits him very harmoniously. I built his hairstyle on the same classic CC5 base. After putting it together from hundreds of planes, I gave it that extra sleeked, groomed effect using sculpting. In conclusion, I want to say that while working in CC5, I ran into annoying bugs that really shouldn't exist in software that cost this money. Just to remind you, I paid $79 for 1 month plus taxes from my country for foreign services. With that money, I could have gone to supermarket several times and still bought whiskey. Specifically, I didn't like the long loading times for third-party FBX models. It could take several minutes. Also, the first time I installed the headshot morphs, the program kept throwing errors, only launching as administrator help. After that, everything installed correctly. Then, one fine day, character creator started complaining that I hadn't purchased licenses for morphs and began putting a watermark on everything. That caused DRM stuff. I reinstalled the add-on, restarted the client, nothing helped. I wrote a ticket to support and they replied the next day with something standard answer. It's funny, but GPT gave me that answer too, and of course it didn't help. Only a complete uninstall and reinstall of CC5 fixed it, so be mentally prepared that you'll pay crazy money and still run into stupid bugs. And yes, when I was making this video, update 5.1 happened, and as the result, the DRM files for the characters I had created broke again. I spent 6 fucking hours trying to figure out what causing it. I cleared the cache, reinstalled the programs, updated the content through help, logged out and back into the system, checked proxy and firewall settings, added Reallusion applications to Windows firewall exceptions, checked that nothing was blocking access to the DRM servers. Basically, I did everything that they recommend in their troubleshooting guides and none of it worked. Then, when I was about to write yet another support ticket and decided to try loading the character one more time, suddenly everything started working. Just like that. As far as I understand, at that moment the DRM service finally responded, or whatever it happened on their side, and my content started loading without any issues. I'm not even going to get into the fact that I was unable to generate a head based on the existing mesh, and I am not the only one. A similar ticket already existed on the Reallusion forum from another user. However, in that case, support claimed that the issue was caused by inverted normals in the auto mesh, but as you can see, the problem is not actually caused by that, and for some reason, I'm 100% sure that in my case, everything would be exactly the same. So, in practice, Headshot 3 is a good tool for generating something truly specific and rare. Really, where do we get realistic meshes of actors who's now around 50 or older? But for working with meshes, you can probably just use Headshot 2 as well. You have seen the characters' artworks I previously generated with this software, and I do not think they differ that much from the original. Of course, this is a great tool, but so many bugs. I just hope my experience will help creators make their right conclusions. And that's it. Of course, these models could still be refined further, but honestly, at that point, it becomes a matter of personal taste. And in the end, this is a kind of modification, I guess. I try to take all the nuances of their appearance into account, but of course, some differences are unavoidable. This isn't a full 3D scan like the ones AAA studios use, and I don't exactly have a time machine to go back and make one either. Of course, there will probably be people saying things like, oh, the nose is tilted 10 degrees wrong, or the face isn't canon enough, and that's totally fine because I made in the way I thought it should look. You can also buy this soft, spend your own time on it, and make your own perfect copy and be happy, right? This is how mine turned out, and here's a bit of simple renders with that, guys. And yes, during these months I also made a retro Sam Lake model from 2K. Spoiler, he turned out really tasty. It's not Max Payne version, no, but by the way, does anyone remember Address Unknown? Yep, I thought it could be cool to show the CG remake of the pilot series and see how it turned out. So if you wanna see that cutie, let me know. Thanks for watching, take care, ciao.